This video is sponsored by Skillshare. On June 13th, The Hollywood Reporter broke the exclusive scoop that Lady Gaga is in talks to join star Joaquin Phoenix and director Todd Phillips for the sequel to the surprise billion-dollar hit Joker. The sequel, with the tentative title Joker, Folie, deux, is of all things set to be a musical, featuring Harley Quinn, the role Margot Robbie brought to life on the big screen. While there were many who wanted a sequel to Joker, a musical was perhaps not quite what they had in mind. Is this indicative of the new direction DC on film will be headed under the auspices of the newly merged Warner and Discovery and CEO David Zaslav? That's what we will be exploring in this video as we first go through the vision and strategy of the previous regime, how that contrasts to the new regime's stated intentions, as well as what is known and what is rumored of the plans going forward. It should never be forgotten that Warner and DC Comics are just about the only other franchise in the world that, if handled correctly, has the potential to pose a threat to Marvel and the MCU. But in the same time frame that the MCU went from strength to strength, DC ran straight into one stumbling block after another. There are several reasons why DC thus far has not been able to compete with Marvel on film, and as we shall see, the overarching ones are corporate. Creatively, there have been multiple inspired directions taken already, and there will be many more to come, and many opportunities will come with then. If that inspires you, then that brings us neatly to Skillshare, this video sponsor. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives which enable you to deepen existing passions as well as to pick up new skills. Whether you want to get better at a hobby or engage in a new career, Skillshare offers classes in topics such as music, photography, all aspects of film and video production, creative writing, and much more. From search engine optimization to video editing, Skillshare has classes that certainly helped us up our game as professional YouTubers. And if being a YouTuber is something you want to try out but don't know where to begin, then look no further than the 15 invaluable lessons in the class From Clueless to Content Creator. Make engaging videos that attract an audience with Aaron Palabiab. But say you need something more specialized on this or any other topic, then all you have to do is search and you shall find, as new premium classes are launched every week. Since Skillshare sponsors our video, we naturally have a deal for you. The first 1,000 of our subscribers to click the link in the description will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare Premium membership so you can explore your creativity. With that, let us see what the new regime at Warner and DC are up to. But in order to appreciate that, let us begin by exploring the outgoing regime. Prior to the Discovery merger, 3 executives at the company who then fell under Warner Media were most responsible for the direction of DC on film. These were Walter Hamada, the president for DC-based film production since 2018, when he replaced the previous Jeff Johns and John Berg regime. He reported to Toby Emmerich, who since 2018 had served as chairman for Warner Brothers Pictures Group. Emmerich in turn reported to Ann Sarnoff, who since 2019 had served as CEO of Warner Brothers. Of the 3, only Toby Emmerich was there during the original Zack Snyder regime, where he was one of the executives who oversaw Snyder and instructed which movies he was to make. Case in point, Snyder wanted to follow up Man of Steel with Man of Steel Part 2. It was Warner's executive team, of whom Emmerich was a part, who mandated that he do Batman v Superman instead, and who approved of the movie's execution. This was the same executive team who also mandated the last-minute editing changes to the original Suicide Squad, and who approved of retooling Snyder's original Justice League into the disastrous Joss Whedon version, and who since then distanced themselves from all things Snyder, a policy which was adopted by later arrivals Walter Hamada and Ann Sarnoff. Case in point, after the then corporate owner AT&T mandated the release of the Snyder Cut as a means to promote the streaming service HBO Max, Ann Sarnoff made it clear that the Snyder Cut was a one-off and a creative dead end, and not representative of her administration's vision for DC. She also blasted the, quote, reprehensible behavior of some of those having pushed for the Snyder Cut to be released. In an interview with Variety published in March of last year in conjunction with the release of the Snyder Cut, she spoke more of the then plans for DC, saying, "We've got an incredible group of creators, television series creators, Max series creators, feature film creators, who are basically broadening the base of the talent that we work with on DC because we're so excited about the potential to build out the DC multiverse. It's one of the reasons why I was hired almost 2 years ago. The before and after was it was a very siloed organization with no connectivity between the businesses. DC was being developed, but in a kind of monolithic way in each division. My mantra coming in was to make it bigger and broader, and we really want to surprise and delight the fans with more connective tissue around the various media and platforms. I'm talking movies, HBO Max, television, and our games division. On listening to fan demand, which is what brought about the Snyder Cut, she said, "We're always going to listen to our fans, but we are in service of the broadest fan base, and we owe them an integrated, holistic strategy. We are the shepherds of the franchise, and hopefully, when the fans see what we've got in store, they'll know that DC is in good hands across many different platforms with many different creators. We want different voices in the mix. For certain fans that want singular voices, they may be disappointed, but we would ask them to be patient and see what we've got in store because perhaps the newer voices in the mix will have just as compelling stories to tell. On balance, you of course want to listen to your fans, but we do want to stay true to our vision and mission for DC and build that out." She also spoke about the importance of diversity and inclusion, both in front of and behind the camera, saying, "It's super important to me, and it's in line with what we want to do. We want to branch out and let creators interpret parts of the universe in unique and special ways. Ta-Nehisi working on Superman is incredibly exciting. I can't wait to see what he comes up with. And director Andy Muschietti on The Flash or Patty Jenkins. Matt Reeves just finished filming The Batman against the odds of COVID. We're so excited to finish that movie and have people see it because Matt's take on Batman is different than the other takes. Even familiar characters have lots of possibilities." In other words, the vision for DC under Sarnoff's reign was different interpretations of the familiar DC characters. This was the vision Walter Hamada was to execute, and the one he had hoped would help him out with it was none other than J.J. Abrams. As we covered in our earlier video on Bad Robot losing power and influence in Hollywood, J.J. Abrams first entered the DC wheelhouse in conjunction with the Warner mega deal, which was announced just a few months prior to the release of Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. That is relevant because according to our good friend and entertainment journalist Mikey Sutton of Geekosity magazine fame, Walter Hamada hoped that Abrams would work the same magic on DC that he had done on Star Trek and Star Wars.
You serious?
The Black Superman project from writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, which Ann Sarnoff expressed excitement for, was one of J.J. Abrams' projects. As it happens, Sarnoff's vision on different interpretations of familiar characters is one that aligns with J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot's modus operandi. His Star Trek movies were a notorious 25% different, which, among other things, facilitated a stake in that interpretation of the characters, which could then be monetized. This was continued on Star Wars, where a share of the revenue from all toys sold of C-3PO with a red arm allegedly went straight to Bad Robot, as they owned a stake in that version of the character. The same would have applied to Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman had it moved forward, and the same will apply to J.J. Abrams' John Constantine if indeed that project moves forward. If it does, it will, according to the Allurement Nerdy, likely star Chopin Durocher as J.J. Abrams' Constantine. Whether it moves forward or not, that project is allegedly the reason why Matt Ryan is no longer playing Constantine on TV, and why Johanna Constantine has taken over the place that belonged to John Constantine in the upcoming Sandman series from Netflix. Bad Robot is said to have demanded a moratorium on the character, so nothing can detract from their interpretation. As of the making of this video, the fate of J.J. Abrams' Constantine is up in the air, but his Superman project is not happening. In fact, much of what Ann Sarnoff wanted is not happening. On April 5th of this year, as the Warner and Discovery merger was being finalized and new CEO David Zaslav started his restructuring, Ann Sarnoff was one of the very first who was let go. Zaslav evidently was not impressed with the handling of DC under her watch, as in an April 14th exclusive, Variety wrote, "Insiders say that Zaslav believed that the success of the merger, one that has left the company highly leveraged, will rest in no small part on unlocking the full potential of the DC Comics universe of characters." Discovery insiders believe that although DC has achieved cinematic success with recent films such as Aquaman and The Batman, it lacks a coherent creative and brand strategy. Discovery believes that several top-shelf characters, such as Superman, have been left to languish and need to be revitalized. Not 2 months later, on June 1st of this year, Toby Emmerich was fired too. That leaves only Walter Hamada, who Mikey Sutton for months has maintained is on his way out the door as well, while the DC film operation will be restricted into its own Marvel Studios-style unit. This was largely confirmed in a June 7th Variety piece which read, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav still hoped to find his answer to Kevin Feige, the guru who guided Marvel Studios to big-screen dominance for rival Disney. As he navigates the film world, Zaslav has relied extensively on the insight of a constellation of industry players, such as former Disney chief Bob Iger and CAA head Brian Lord, polling them about his plans to reshape the studio. He's also in talks with former Disney film chief and Warner Brothers leader Alan Horn about becoming a consultant. The courtship of Watts means Walter Hamada, the current president of DC Films Production, has an uncertain future, even though he remains under contract until 2023. Zaslav believes that DC is an underutilized asset. He's frustrated that its cinematic output has been inconsistent and there hasn't been sufficient long-term planning in terms of rolling out sequels and follow-ups to popular movies. Does that mean Zaslav feels Joker musicals is the way to go to get DC right? On June 13th, The Hollywood Reporter broke the exclusive scoop that both Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga are in talks for Joker 2, which according to director Todd Phillips will be called Joker, Folie, deux, the title referencing a medical term for an identical or similar mental conditions that affects two or more individuals. It doesn't matter that Margot Robbie already is Harley Quinn. This is a different continuity. The twist, though, is that it is reportedly a musical. Is this really Zaslav's work? By all accounts, no. Joker 2 has been in development for a long time under the previous regime, and by way of Hamada, the previous regime is still there. That being said, given the success of the previous Joker, which actually outgrossed Rise of Skywalker, anyone would greenlight a sequel to it from the same director, no matter how far out there. But if not musicals, what is representative of what the new regime wants to do? Obviously, there are many more things than this that the new regime wants to do, but according to Mikey Sutton's Geekosity magazine, one of them is a series of R-rated black label films inspired by the DC comic imprint of that name, and The Joker, the billion-dollar grossing original movie that is, not the proposed musical sequel. Geekosity also claims one of the directors Warner Brothers Discovery considers for such a venture is Zack Snyder himself. It could be a while before such movies happen though, with or without Snyder, as the DC operation is still a work in progress, for the time being still being run by the previous administration's Walter Hamada. Not until the permanent replacement comes in will we know what direction DC will ultimately take going forward, including how to deal with the two time bombs left by the previous administration, the Scourge of Hawaii and that certain Aquaman starlet. For now, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And before you go, if you feel inspired, remember to click the link in the description so you too can explore your creativity and be among the 1,000 to get a 1-month free trial of premium Skillshare membership.